What's happening? What's good? What's going on? Part of my Presence YouTube channel. I want to talk about Usain Bolt for a second. This is a man who's a legendary Jamaican sprinter, someone who's won multiple gold medals, breaking records in the Olympics, the 100 meter, the 200 meter, the 4x4 relay, putting Jamaica on his back and becoming an Olympic icon, iconic athlete during our times, probably one of the best athletes pound for pound. And this is a story about how he invested, or he gave a wealth management company money to invest for him, and somewhere along the line fraud occurred and that money was lost. But there's a bigger story to this, because it wasn't just his money that was lost, it was others who lost their money as well too. But apparently Usain Bolt is, I guess, the most famous name attached to this scandal, or maybe he's just a name that people want to put out there to avoid talking about the other names attached to it. So I'm going to get into those details. I'm going to read this article that's from theentrepreneur.com, and let's get right into it. So let's read the article. It says here that Usain Bolt was reportedly caught in a massive employee fraud scheme that resulted in over $1.2 billion in stolen funds from a wealth management company named Stocks and Securities Limited, SSL. That's the most generic name for a wealth management company, Stocks and Securities Limited. Anyways, let's continue. Okay, so it says here that Bolt had millions invested into SSL, and this is based on his manager, Nugent Walker. That's what he told the Jamaican newspaper, the Gleaner. Now it says here that SSL is a wealth management company and a brokerage, and they have offices in Kingston, Jamaica, and they provide services including private wealth management. So pretty much they're a company who deals with people who like to invest a high amount of wealth. This is not something where you could go in with $10,000. They won't take your money. You have to have somewhere along the lines of probably definitely six figures, probably 300,000 and up, 500,000 and up. So this is a company that doesn't deal with small fry people. These guys invest money by millionaires. Okay, so that's important to know in the situation. So it's nobody who is not wealthy. Okay, so Usain Bolt might be a famous name, but there's other people probably richer than him that have also lost money in this situation. So let's keep going. Okay, so it says here that Usain Bolt's retired legendary sprinter, holds many world records, blah blah blah. His net worth is around 31 million. Right, so he has many marketing deals and several brand deals with Puma. He also has restaurant chains in all over the world, I guess, called Track and Records. Now, what it says here is that the fraud with SSL was by a former employee. And SSL acknowledged the fraud, and they were aware of the former employee that conducted this fraud, and they've taken the steps to secure those assets and strengthen internal protocols to detect suspicious activity in the shortest time possible. But you notice they never say how long this was going on for. They never name the person who was involved in this. They never tell you of the details. Was it multiple people involved? Usually when it comes to these fraud schemes, if it's the tune of $1.2 billion, it's definitely not a one-man operation, that's for sure. So it goes on to say that Usain Bolt was informed of this fraud before it became public knowledge. Now, that's great that you let me know before everyone else knows that my money disappeared. Wow, thank you for providing that service. Instead of providing the service where my money is secure and it makes money and invests and it grows, you let me know ahead of time that people are stealing my money. Great, that's good to know. That's great service, right? But here's the most important part of this article that I want to highlight. It goes on to say that the fraud is thought to have affected more than 30 people to the tune of $1.2 billion, and that Bolt's investment was a little less than $10 million, right? So if you read between the lines and if you use some critical thinking, then let's look at this. When they say it affected more than 30 people, then I would look at that and think, okay, well, that must mean it was less than 40 people, or else they would have said it affected more than 40 people, right? So let's use a number. Let's take a number of 35, right? Let's say it affected 35 people. That means those 35 people had a value invested an amount of 1.2 billion, and we know that this person didn't siphon all of their money or all of their wealth. They just were able to take 1.2 billion, right? So if we do the math on that, on average, right, if we're to divide 1.2 billion by 35 people, then on average that means each of those people, those 35 people, which includes Usain Bolt, they had a value of $34 million each that they lost. Right, but when you look at what this shows here about Usain Bolt only lost just a little bit less than $10 million. So what this tells me is that the people who lost the most amount of money, we don't even know who they are. They're not Usain Bolt. They're not famous. We don't even know if they're Jamaican. They could be from Ireland. They could be from the United States. They could be Canadian. They could be from Switzerland or Brazil. They could be white, Chinese, black, Spanish. We don't even know. Right? All we know is that Usain Bolt is the face as the victim of this scandal. But really, when you do the math to that, again, that's 34 million on average. We all know that's not going to be evenly distributed that way. So there's probably 5 people who had the bulk of that 1.2 million, and the rest had a lot lesser that they lost. So in other words, we don't even know who is really the victim of this scandal. We just know a small percentage just because he's famous and he is Jamaican, so he's going to be the face of this, right? So that's very interesting to understand. So apparently the government did an investigation and they found transactions of a suspicious nature going back over 10 years. Now that kind of makes sense because when you look at the amount of 1.2 million, that's not something you could just take away of people's accounts overnight. That's something where you have to siphon it over an extended period of time to prevent any red flags and to go undetected for so long. Now it also says that Bolt's money has been with SSL for over 10 years, and they're going to review his entire portfolio. So SSL is now under control of the Jamaica's Financial Services Commission. That commission apparently oversees things like mutual funds, pensions, other financial transactions. And it's not clear whether or not the people who have lost their money are ever going to get it back. And SSL made an official statement about this on their account, or on their website, and it says, "We understand that clients are anxious to receive more information and assure you that we are closely monitoring the matter throughout all the required steps and will alert our clients of the resolution as soon as that information is available." Now, again, if that's me, that's not very comforting at all. It's something that, again, if these institutions are not insured, then they probably won't get their money back at all. And the messed up thing about it is that when you look at the Jamaican economy, when you look at the Jamaican people, the citizens, and how there's a disparity between the haves and the have-nots, I highly doubt that $1.2 billion was invested into the Jamaican economy, or whether or not it was dispersed amongst Jamaicans in the country. It's my opinion that they probably took the money and shipped it out overseas, offshore, and put into another country's economy. And pretty much this is something that is not uncommon. A lot of times, especially when it comes to what we deem as quote-unquote third world countries, but really those countries have the most richest resources. They have the most natural wealth of all of the countries in the world. But what's happened is that other countries that are the quote-unquote first world countries, like United States, Britain, Germany, Belgium, all those places, they take all of the resources, they steal and siphon all of the natural resources and minerals from those countries, and those minerals feed and support and pretty much are the underlying driver of these first world countries' economy. But it's never the third world countries that get to benefit from the raw material, the raw resources, or even in this case, the raw talent of a Jamaican sprinter who has won so many golds and broke so many records based on his ability and his speed and his determination. So I think the most important part about this is that financial literacy is key. The amount of hours that people spend studying to get their degree and to get the highest paid job possible, or the amount of time people spend working out in the gym to become the fastest athlete so that they win gold medals, All of these things are done and focused on to build the best possible product and the best skill in order to make the most amount of money. But there's the other side of it that people neglect, and that is after you've built yourself up and after you've gained so many different skills where you could demand this type of pay or contracts, the money comes. And when the money comes, do you know what to do with it? Are you well versed in how money works? Because money is a tool, and just like construction, you have a hammer, you have a screwdriver, you have a power drill, but if you don't know its purpose, if you don't know how to use it, then you're going to end up paying a contractor to do the work for you. And as we all know, the contractor will sell you a low price for their services, but then when you start the job, you're going to find all of these increases. The price starts inflating. Before you know it, the end result is going to cost you 3 times the amount that they quoted you in the beginning, right? And it's simply the same thing as when you go to a mechanic. If you're not well versed on cars, and especially your car, the mechanic's going to try to upsell you on things. The mechanic's going to get you to repair things that don't need to be repaired, and this is where mechanics start to gouge you, right? But if you go in there, haven't done your research, you know how your car works and how it operates, you know the maintenance repair schedule, if you know what you've done last as far as replacing your brakes or replacing the oil in your motor, or you've done the fuel injection, if you've done those things and you know when you've done it, then there's nothing that a mechanic can tell you to screw you over or try to win one over on you. And if the mechanic senses that you have some idea and some type of competency about cars, they're most likely not going to try to screw you over because they don't want to be exposed. And it's the same thing with all these wealth management companies. If you go in there with some type of knowledge of how finances work and how your money works, and you have a clear understanding of what you want to do and what you expect for your money, how you want it to grow, the expectations over time, and where you want your money to be placed, they're going to look at you as a client. They're going to say, you know what, this is not a client that we can screw over. Let's not touch this account to screw over. We can screw over other people's accounts, because they're going to put the money in and they're going to set it and forget it, and they can do whatever they want with that money. But your money, they're going to be extra careful for your money, knowing that you're going to start asking questions, asking for them to produce reports, investment returns, check their account activity statements. You're going to ask for tax slips, trade confirmations, like all these different things. If you know your stuff, then they're going to make sure that they have all of those things for you so that they don't mess around with your account. So they're probably more likely going to mess around with other people's accounts, but not yours. But the other part about that is if you're asking these questions and they're not able to produce results that are to your liking, or you find that there's things on those reports that don't add up, that don't match, then you could catch them and you could take your money out in time so that you're not like Usain Bolt, who goes from 10 million to I think it was 1,200 that he's able to withdraw, because that's all that's left from his account, right? So these are the things they have to be aware of. It's always best to be hands-on. It's always best to have some type of competence when it comes to financial literacy and investing. So gain as much knowledge as you can, because again, this is your money and it's your hard-earned money. So you don't want it to go to waste, and you definitely don't want to give it to somebody who's going to mistreat it, who's going to try to defraud you, and is going to pretty much ruin your future and your kids' future, right? And the funny thing is, these people come to you in shiny suits. They come to you with some established wealthy name. They come to you with pie charts. They give projections, and you're impressed and you entrust them. But the thing is, again, you entrust them, and you can if you like, but always follow up. Always look into things. Always ask questions. Never give them free rein. And this is where it's important that if you build enough competency and you know your stuff and you feel confident, then you can manage your own money. You can manage your own investments. You can do your own trades. You can set up your own option plays. These are things that if you have the ability to do and you've gained enough knowledge and you've put in some practice, then you could do these things on your own. But again, sometimes you have to know your limitation. And if you know there's certain investments that you don't want to do yourself, you don't want to be the one who's actively managing your money, then sure, you could give it to somebody else, but make sure you follow up and make sure that they know that you're going to hold them accountable every step of the way. And last thing I want to say is that this is in no way, shape, or form a knock on invested into your own people, into companies that are black owned, or into your governments, because when you look at all of this, we don't even know who it was that was responsible for this fraud. We don't know if that money went overseas or whether the person who defrauded him was even Jamaican, because when you look at the amount of his $1.2 billion, if that was put into the Jamaican economy, that would be noticed right away, right? You would see that. 1.2 billion is something that would be definitely noticeable if it was put into the cities and the towns in Jamaica, right? So I say that to say this. There's a documentary that came out recently about Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff was a man who had that Ponzi scheme that defrauded many people of their lifetime savings and their retirement. And he's Jewish. A lot of Jewish people went to Bernie Madoff to give him money to invest for them because they trusted him because he was Jewish, right? And he promised them these high returns that were higher than any other wealth company management out there. The funny thing about Bernie Madoff is that he never invested any of the money. He kept all the money for himself, and all he did is that when people asked for the money back, he would take money from other people and he would give it back to somebody else, right? Rob Peter to pay Paul type of thing. But he never invested any of the money, which I found really odd, because you would think that he would have tried to invest the money, and if it failed, and that's why he started the Ponzi scheme. But no, the Ponzi scheme was from the beginning. He just took people's money. That's all he did, right? So this is not something that you could get away from if you invest in somebody else that doesn't look like you, or somebody else that you think because they have a suit and tie, they have a certain last name, they have a certain religious background. It doesn't mean that your money is safe in those situations. You need to be hands-on with your money at every step of the way, and that you understand what's going on. And that's not just with these wealth management companies. That's with your accountant, that's with your manager, that's with everybody who's in your circle that you employ. So these are things that you have to be careful of. Again, this is my 2 cents on the whole situation with Usain Bolt. I hope he gets his money back. Most likely he won't, because it didn't seem like those companies were insured where they are able to provide you with the money in cases where there's a loss, right? So again, these are things that people need to understand and be wary of, and learn how to protect yourself by being educated. Let me know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe. If you disagree, put it in the comment section. But until next time, next move, best move, part of my presence YouTube channel. Peace.